helps if I unmute my mic. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. Today is Sunday, July 26, 2020. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Hemant Mehta. Welcome, sir. We're so glad that he's here. I'm going to get through the regular announcements first here as we get going. For those of you who are tuned in and watching, yes, we are still in lockdown. We are still doing this remotely. Here in Austin, Texas, lockdown is not going to end until August 15th, but the ACA is going to continue to probably do the show remotely until the actual severe risk is over, because we've gotten much better at it. There's still going to be issues with the phone lines. That's always going to be the case. There's going to be a slight delay between me and my co-host. There'll be a slight delay between us and the callers. There'll be a slight delay between us and chat, or even a bigger delay there. So please exercise some patience. I'll try to be judicious in using the mute button, and I'll try not to just, have dueling yelling over the top of each other type things with callers, but you never know what'll happen. By the way, if you're watching us live on YouTube, we've done away with the super chat stuff, and up at the top above the chat, you'll see just a straight up donation link. And as a 501c3 nonprofit educational corporation, all of those donations go directly to the ACA. Every penny that you put in on the donation link goes to us. Google and YouTube don't take anything out of it, and that helps us continue doing the shows. And while the cost of shows has gone up, I'm just stunned at what our crew continues to be able to do to work through this. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But in addition to the donations, there's also the ability to purchase merchandise, and they'll put the graphic up there where you can go to bit.ly/AEN merch and shop for your Atheist Experience merch. You can also get a membership on YouTube, or you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheist, or is it the Atheist Experience? Crap, I just got it wrong probably. But the most important thing are the people who are making all of this happen, not just you, the listeners who are contributing, but to our crew. There's the cat that runs Vern, and everybody else there who are engaged in call screening and working behind the scenes. Every job that we used to have one person on in the building has now got two. There's a pilot and co-pilot for every potential station. The building is empty. It's just a bunch of computers there, and we are remoting in and running the show out of there. I'm thrilled to be here today. This is somebody who I've known for, almost as long as I've been doing this show, actually. It's been well over a dozen years. Haven't met it. If you're not familiar with him, you can go to friendlyatheist.com. He runs the Friendly Atheist blog. We've got all of his social media outlet information up there on your screen for you to interact with. But I have to say that I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. We thought it wasn't going to be able to happen because normally you'd need to be in Austin to be able to do the show, but now everybody's remote, so we don't care. And I have to thank Hemant and give him credit, because if you listened to the nonprofits during the years where it was me and Russell and Jeff and Dennis, pretty much our schedule was the guys would come over on Saturday to record, and all of us, about an hour or two before we sat down recording, would go out and look for news items, which means all of us went to the Friendly Atheist blog and looked at everything that Hemant had posted on in the week and went, hey, let's talk about that story. Ooh, and that story and that story. And then if Hemant missed something, we'd go find it somewhere else and shuffle it back. So welcome, my friend. I'm glad to have you here on live.
Atheist.com. I've been for the better part of 15 some years now. And besides that, I was on YouTube on the Atheist Voice channel for several years. I recently decided to just kind of do everything on my own, which is why if you go to YouTube and just search for Friendly Atheist, you will find a bunch of videos about the Book of Genesis or current events or what have you. So, hey, subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, since it's relatively new and I'm learning how to edit videos on my own, which is a weird thing for me. There is also the Friendly Atheist podcast, if anyone's interested in a discussion about current events. So as I was telling Matt, I've been aware of this show forever. I know how much it means to people who I've talked to over the years and how much they appreciate watching it. So it's fun to be a part of it. I'm glad I could finally do it.
Well, I was off and you were vamping about who you are and everything else. But in all seriousness, I'm incredibly grateful you did this. Sorry that we're having a technical issue right off the bat. But I think that we're ready to potentially start taking calls. And I didn't know if in the course of that you had a caller that you had particularly wanted to go to, or if I should just pick somebody.
Oh, you're welcome to pick somebody. I always like the questions dealing with current events or less philosophy, but is not necessarily a thing I pay attention to as much. So your choice entirely.
All right. We've got Keith in New England. You're on with Hemant and Matt. How are you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, yeah, I'm in Nebraska. First of all, I love you both. And I called in a long time. I'll get to the point. I had a question. Basically, I had a statement that I had evidence of the supernatural. I'm a truck driver, and it was about a graveyard last time. Well, I have a better argument this time. I just told you creamed me last time, but now I'm ready, and this is going to be good. Are you ready now?
All right, I'm curious.
Go for it.
Okay. Now, you said that you were okay with hypotheticals last time. Now, this is another hypothetical. It is in the graveyard. Again, I know. Long story short, 5 people are in the graveyard, and they're 6 feet apart. The graveyard is supposedly haunted. Last time you said that there is no way to measure the supernatural. So how do you know what supernatural is if there's no? You can't. And so I asked, how can you? Have you ever seen a haunted house? And he said, yeah. You said yes. And long story short, you can't measure fire if you don't know what fire is. Same thing with the supernatural. Now we're going to bring it up a notch. Okay.
So first of all, there's 23 mistakes in what you just said. Can you just get to whatever it is that you're going to try to talk about?
Yeah. What's the proof of the supernatural here?
I love you guys. Yep. Supernatural. You're in a graveyard, supposedly haunted, 5 people, 6 feet away from each other. Instead of scratch marks on your back, which could be bacteria, you're going to have your name. Hi, Matt. I am a ghost, I am real, and I'm supernatural. On each individual person, a different name identifying their name. And they are not just they are scratch marks, and they are said, God is real, supernatural is real. And you look, last time you said, you don't know
Keith,
what that would be. What would you say to that?
Keith, what would I say to that? It hasn't fucking happened. And when something like that happens, bring it to us. But as long as it's just a fictional scenario in your head.
There's a lot of, I just won $1 million because that's what I just said. Therefore, I mean, that's not proof of anything. That's a nifty hypothetical, like Matt said, that hasn't happened. So how is that proof of anything?
You address the scratch marks. Why can't you address this one?
Because it hasn't happened.
You address the hypothetical scratch. I'm talking about the writing of your name, supernatural, is real, on your backs, and you all look and say, "Oh, did you do that?" No, it's haunted. I am the haunted ghost on your.
Keith, it hasn't happened. You might as well be calling in to say, "What are you going to do if God shows up and smacks you in the face and says, 'Hi, I'm God'?" You know, these hypotheticals are useless.
Right. When it happens to me, I will change my mind on a lot of things, but none of that stuff ever happens.
Okay.
Where are you getting this hypothetical from anyway? Like,
last time we addressed the scratch marks, just being scratch marks, we talked about it being bacteria. We talked about this.
I don't recall this, but
a little bit.
I don't recall this, and I don't know.
Now,
do you have some kind of argument that is supported by evidence that you'd like to present? Because I don't know who you talked to last time, and maybe it was me, and maybe I'm just not remembering because I don't remember a discussion about scratch marks, but I am literally not interested in hypotheticals at all.
Okay. It was the wonderful lady with the curly hair.
Yeah, so you didn't talk to me, did you?
Well, you basically got me on the logic part.
Did you talk to me and I told you to call in? Did you talk to me and did I tell you to call in with hypotheticals?
You said you're okay with hypotheticals. You gave me a scenario of 5 things.
I'm okay with discussing them. I'm not okay with the notion that hypotheticals should be presented as evidence. Because if you just pull a story out of your ass, then you pulled a story out of your ass. What I care about is what's actually happening.
Well, I'm sorry. I just thought that would be okay.
What could it possibly, Keith?
Yeah.
How could it possibly serve anybody for you to present a hypothetical case of evidence that has not happened? What good is that?
Well, I last time we talked about the hypothetical.
I'm asking a question
okay.
now, Keith, stop talking about last time we talked. I'm asking a question now. What good is it to say, hey, what would you do if a ghost showed up?
You would say yes, they're real.
If there was sufficient evidence for it, I will accept anything. Do you have sufficient evidence? Because I'm not interested in just sitting around saying, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if I hang up right now?
Okay, I understand. I give you the win.
Good, because I just hung up.
What's the opposite of a mic drop moment? Can a mic float up? That's what just happened.
Yeah. Where did that mic go? Where'd that mic go?
Mic float moment.
I'm going to take this just so that we can kind of move. But so, Steve in Ohio, you're on with Hemant and Matt. How are you?
Hey, Matt. How are you doing? Is it Evan?
Hey.
What news? Hey, thanks, guys, for having me on. Hey, I did bring up to you last time about President Trump and how he might take the election and stay in office.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Steve. Steve, according to this, it says you made a prediction last time and it's coming true. And my answer is no, it's not.
No, wait, could I did say, wait, just for a second. A week ago today, he said that he probably wouldn't take
I don't give a shit what he said. I don't give it. Stop, Steve. This is your little personal toy. You made a prediction and you're worried about what will happen. Do not call me back until after the election. Got it? Thanks.
We're just breezing through calls.
We are. Matt's on a tear today. And it's because, so what Steve did was Steve predicted that Trump would lose the election, but would not accept the results of the election. And this is his big prediction. And if he's wrong, then he's going to donate money to us for the homeless. And if he's right, well, we lose, or he loses nothing and we lose nothing. And so it's a win-win for us. Right. Except you don't get to call in, make that prediction and say, look at what Trump said last week. Call me after the election's over.
Right. Because I'm with you there. I mean, anyone's projecting anything they want onto him, onto his opponents. We don't know what's going to happen in that sense. So, yeah, I don't know what the point is of pointing it out now. He says a lot of things.
Yes, he certainly does. And as a nonprofit organization that can't be partisan, I have limits as to what I can say. Nicholas in New York, you're on with Hemant Mehta and Matt Dillahunty. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Hey, Nicholas.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, two things, I guess. I've listened to the show quite a bit. I'm a Christian by background. Love what you're doing. Love the arguments you make.
Thank you.
Feel bad about the weak arguments some of my Christians in the community bring to the table. So I guess I'm sure you've covered this before for both of you. What about instances? I know we're very evidence-based. So I'm a scientist by background too. So I'm very evidence-based too.
Sure.
Are you open to the possibility that we can't measure things of a spiritual world or another realm where spiritual instances can exist? We might either not have ways to measure them or sense them. Are you open to the possibility that those things may exist, but the evidence or detecting the evidence we just are not capable of yet?
Sure, I'm open to the possibility, but the possibility needs to be demonstrated. The time to believe that something actually exists is after you've demonstrated it, not in 1 second before.
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotal things like this happened. We can't prove it, but it totally happened. And on what basis do you want me to accept that? I'm never sure what people want to count as reality here.
It's not that we're close.
I think
skeptics aren't close to the possibility of things. The thing is, possibility needs to be demonstrated and impossibility needs to be demonstrated. So if you want to claim that it's possible that there's a supernatural realm, you got to demonstrate that. I'm open to being convinced about that. But, if the type of argument, and I know you're not doing this or not necessarily doing this, Nicholas, but what ends up happening is when somebody starts an argument along these lines and like, would you just acknowledge that perhaps there's a supernatural realm that we just can't test? I have to always throw in 20 caveats because if you and I agree that there's a possibility of a supernatural realm that we cannot test, then you and I must also agree that the fact that we can't test for it means that we cannot possibly have evidence for it that would be sufficient to warrant belief, which means now both of us must acknowledge that we have no justification for believing in the supernatural yet. And now you're in the tough position of explaining how you're a theist when you can't justify believing in the supernatural.
Yep. So I think so there is at least some evidence. I mean, the Bible itself or scriptural text.
No, Harry Potter is not evidence for the supernatural, is it?
The Bible is true because the Bible exists and says the Bible is true.
Yeah, well, I get your point is a good one. Let me not say evidence, but we have at least some foundational basis for a faith belief of what these texts are describing or saying, right? Could it be that they're made up and they're artifice? Yes.
Kind of. Let him again jump in here.
Which aspects are we talking about? I mean, that stuff makes a difference. Talking about geography in the Bible or something, the places exist. Talking about supernatural, whatever, at the beginning of the Bible, Genesis stuff versus the miracles of Jesus, that's a very different question we're asking now.
Yeah, I mean, so the Bible says that Jesus raised someone from the dead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do we have any good reason to think that actually happened?
No, and I've never witnessed that myself or heard substantiated claims of anybody ever witnessing a raising of the dead in my lifetime or lifetimes before me. So that's a hard pill to swallow. So no.
And if we do that,
I guess I go back to: is it possible that could have happened in a different era?
You don't know.
For some unexplainable reason. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know if it's possible.
So where are you going with which part of this is true? Because you're saying that there is evidence of this, the stuff in the Bible. Which thing are you referring to that suggests it's true?
Well, we're going down a little bit of a wormhole here. I was just sort of my initial question: are you open to this as being possible? And I understand your arguments for and against that. I really wanted to. So I'm a unique type of Christian. I'm a universalist. So I believe everything a normal Christian would be about Jesus and the holiness of the text and faith and love, all of this stuff, except I also believe in the salvation of all of creation in the end. I think that there's some sort of
you've made up your own thing you've made up your own doctrine that isn't biblical and decided that's what the truth is.
No, I do believe it is biblical. I think we have lots of scripture we can point to. I mean, you know your scripture very well, Matt. God desires all of.
If you have to go through Jesus accepting his salvation in order to be saved, are you saying, nope, that's optional? Anyone else can get there too?
No, I believe in the truth of that statement. So yes, everybody who has to go to the Father goes through Jesus. So I'm a Christian universalist, so I don't think you're just saved willy-nilly. I think, and the Bible doesn't explain this mechanism, but I think, like you too as well, through either on earth before you die or at some intermediary after you die, I think there's some sort of revelation that will happen, a truth revealed, and that all of creation will accept. And we see hints of this throughout the text. So all knees will bend and all tongues will speak. They're not doing that out of coercion. They're doing that out of persuasion of the majesty of the Godhead, right?
So nobody goes to hell forever. So nobody goes to hell forever.
Yeah, nobody goes to hell forever. No, I mean, to your point.
How long do I go to hell?
Often, Matt. I mean,
how long do I get to go to hell for?
So the scripture doesn't tell us that, but Jesus does mention hell. He talks about punishment. So I think that has to be, I believe Jesus when he says that in the text. But to have a loving, benevolent God that's created us out of love and then just assigns us
here's the problem, Nicholas.
Torment.
Here's the problem. You're a nice person. You don't want to believe that the God that you've become convinced exists is actually a dick, despite what traditional interpretations of scripture would hold. And so you've invented something you're more comfortable with. You're in good company. You're right there alongside with the annihilationists who think that the people who don't accept God, they don't go to hell, they just cease to exist. You're there right alongside every gay-friendly church on the planet that has decided to disregard what the Bible says about homosexuality and just focus on loving each other. But the fact of the matter is, you have zero evidence for even the base claim that there is a God or an afterlife or anything else. You don't have enough evidence to justify believing any of it, let alone the extra stuff that you've made up in order to make yourself more comfortable. So why should, and plus, if now your view is that Hemant and I just get to go spend eternity in paradise after some degree of punishment, then why do I give a shit whether there's a God or what a God might want me to do? If everybody gets it, it ain't special.
So there's a lot to unpack in there. So you're right. My belief is based on faith. I'm not going to try to make the argument that it makes sense, or I believe. I can't undo. I can't undo. I think it's a fool's errand with so many people that call in trying to convince you. I mean, that the caller about this hypothetical
hang on a second.
cemetery.
I'm really curious. Do you go to a church that also preaches all this? Or is this just something you came up with despite what your church says?
No, I think that the church is open enough to consider that as a possibility. I do go to church. This is not there's a lot of universal salvation believers. Like Matt said, there's annihilationists, there's universalists. I think to the second part of your statement, I don't believe I am making it up. I think there is scriptural evidence. I mean, you heard me say all knees will bend, all tongues will speak.
Nicholas,
Hold on. Let me give you another. Let me give you another big passage.
No, Nicholas, maybe you didn't make it up, but you're agreeing with other people who made it up.
Okay.
And so the fact that there are annihilationists and universalists and fundamentalists demonstrate that even amongst those people who believe, they cannot produce enough evidence or sound argument to make the case for different doctrines about the most important thing ever, which is what must one do to be saved, and what happens, and how do you get to be saved, and what happens afterwards. And so why don't you go talk to some fundamentalists and some annihilationists and others, and when you guys agree on what the actual message is, call me back, because all of this right now is just wasted speculation. You have, here's a scripture I read, which leads me to believe this. Yes, but do you have any evidence for it? Well, that's the scripture I read. Yes, but somebody else read that scripture and came up with something completely different. It is absolutely useless. This is mental masturbation. People are doing the things that make themselves feel most comfortable. You don't like the idea that somebody might burn in hell forever. You don't like the idea necessarily of annihilation. So you've picked the doctrine. I won't say you made it up. I know other people did. I know that universalists existed before you. So I was kind of just going with colloquial when I said you made it up. You didn't make it up. But you've accepted the thing that you're comfortable with, and yet we're still in a position where we have no reason to think that your version is true, or the version you reject is true, or the next version after that is true. There's a reason there's over 1,000 denominations that all identify as Christian, and they can't agree on anything. Or I guess they don't agree on everything.
I think, but don't you find that you're constantly, especially on this show, you're constantly battling the Christian community that's trying to convince you or save you? A universalist won't do that. A universalist believes that you're saved.
I know. Universalists will just call and waste my fucking time.
I had a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, old friend, hadn't talked to in a long time, that said, hey, because he knows about that I'm an atheist, he's like, I wanted to tell you, I wanted to talk to you about Christianity. I'm like, not interested. He's like, no, but I'm a different kind of Christian. Let me tell you about Jesus. And this is where it goes off the rails, because he's just like, no, I'm a Jesus follower. I'm not a Christian. It's the same thing. And just because you take out the parts that might be less appealing to strangers doesn't make it more palatable to anybody else. That's what I feel like I'm getting from you too. It's like, let me take out the part that is clearly off-putting to people, and let me present a different version. It doesn't change the issue that we're dealing with here. Like Matt said, what's the evidence for it? That's what it comes down to. It's not that hell is too problematic and that's why we reject Christianity. It's the same basic principle that we're stuck with you that we're not finding.
Yeah, and at this point, you've given us even less motivation to believe you or care about what your view is than the people who are threatening us with hell. At least they've given me something to care about.
Oh, fair enough. All right, guys, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks, Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. And, obviously I deal with this stuff a little more directly on a regular basis than you do, but you have as well. And so I figure before we take the next call, and I don't know if you covered this at all, but for the audience's benefit, can you give like a quick rundown of your religious background?
Yeah.
Have you been an atheist forever? Did you find your way out? So just so they get a better feel for who you are answering these.
I grew up in the Jain religion, which is technically a non-theistic religion, though I didn't realize that until much later in life. I was raised to believe in a God. I was raised to believe in karma and reincarnation and the idea that you should be a good person. If you know nothing else about Jainism, it's the idea that you should be nonviolent. Don't think bad thoughts. You should be vegetarian because it's cruelty to animals, things like philosophically good ideas. I don't buy the supernatural stuff. So I started questioning my faith when I was about 14. Didn't take long for those dominoes to fall, and I became an atheist. I call myself an atheist. So I didn't grow up in Christianity. I should say Christianity is something I experienced without understanding and then came to understand later on much more. But that's where I'm coming from here. Obviously, when you write about politics and current events issues, that's almost entirely focused on Christianity in the US anyway.
Sure.
So that's kind of where my understanding of it kind of grew over the past several years.
I remember you telling me about this ages ago, and yet for some reason, because I've known you for so long, and it's just like, oh, it's Hemant, it's the friendly atheist. Every time I try to talk about Jain, the Jain religion and Jain's, it's like, oh, I've got a friend who is an ex-Jain, but I just never think of it because, like, oh, he's the friendly atheist. And
it doesn't come up that much. The only time I've actually heard it, Jainism, mentioned a lot in atheist circles anyway, is the idea that, if you're a fundamentalist, whatever, that's probably a bad thing. But people have said, like, well, if you're fundamentalist Jain, like, you're a hardcore nonviolent person, that's probably a good thing.
Oh, I've argued against that.
Yeah, well, it could go off the rails too, because even among Jains, there is a belief in fasting, which I've seen stories. People go overboard with that. Yeah. The idea of it's almost like an OCD thing of how far you're willing to go to avoid hurting people. Like
a lot of Jains wear face coverings so that they don't accidentally inhale an insect.
Right. I mean, we did that kind of on the high holy days, where you would put the mask on, very pandemic-like, before there was a pandemic, but usually the sort of, I'm going to sweep the ground that I'm walking on so I don't step on anything. That's one of those things typically reserved, at least in the tradition I grew up with. That's what the monks did. That's what the priests and such did. It wasn't something my family or anybody I knew did on a regular basis. I've heard the same thing with clothes too. Like, why would you wear clothes? Sometimes they got clothes by hurting other people, hurting other animals. Everyone I knew wore clothes too. Like, it's practiced differently depending on who you are, where you are, all that good stuff.
Well, yeah, it was really interesting. I got another call here from Craig in New Braunfels, which is just south of us here. I think, is this correct, Craig? Are you asking us, do people have a right to be stupid?
That's a very simple version of it. I didn't know how better to word it.
Okay, because the answer has to be yes. You have a right to be stupid. It's not like we can even impose, you're not allowed to be stupid, because some people evidently can't help it.
Yeah, if only that was the thing we could do.
I think it's that they can't help it thing. Maybe that's the thing that's tripping me up, because I've always disagreed with this with everyone I've asked. And for me, it's because I tend to equate stupid with a higher chance to cause harm. And I ask myself, do people have a right to cause harm when they could have otherwise? And so I've always fallen on the no, people don't have a right to be stupid.
So
am I tripped up about that?
Well, kind of. I mean, I'm in agreement with you. For me, when I talk about someone or something being stupid, it's generally the notion, it's not like you're low IQ or you're unintelligent or you're uninformed. It's you should have known better and you could have known better and you were just careless enough to do this damage. It'd be kind of like somebody isn't to be faulted if they're clumsy and they wind up doing damage. However, if you're clumsy, you take extra steps to make sure you're not doing damage to other people's things. And so that's kind of what we would expect from someone who might be a little more careless with thought.
I've always taken the same approach. Like, ignorance itself is not a problem. I try hard not to be upset at someone for not knowing something I feel like they should know. It's a question of, what do you do with that information? Like, do you try to figure it out? Willful ignorance, to me, is much more damning than just someone not knowing stuff.
Yeah, I actually canceled a debate that I was going to be doing live because of the pandemic. And then they wanted me to do it remotely, and I was on board with it. And then the person who I was supposed to be debating went on Twitter and started sharing anti-mask conspiracy theorist crap, and I canceled the debate. I don't want their money. I'm not going to promote them. What they're doing is stupid and dangerous. They're encouraging people to increase their health risks and the health risks of others during a pandemic. So I canceled it.
So, okay, so this might be looked at as if you have a universal right to free speech, you have the right to say stupid things, and you might apply that to actions as well. Like
So-
if a belief is based on, go ahead.
I have a hard time you're connecting stupidity or ignorance to free will or freedom of speech, someone's rights. Like, people can be stupid. I mean, like Matt said, you can't stop that from happening. Again, my focus in that sense would be people who ought to know better but choose not to. That's where I would reserve my anger.
There's also the harm. There's the whatever limits we put on free speech, and I'm not a free speech absolutist. I'm fine with the notion of, hey, you shouldn't shout fire in a crowded theater unless there's actually a fire, and that libel and slander and things that are done to harm and hurt people where there's damages, that those things apply. But somebody honestly being wrong, it's a fine line.
I get a lot of stories sent to me from people saying, here's a pastor saying something, maybe that's a topic you want to cover. And a lot of times, if it's a pastor saying something I believe is wrong, that in itself isn't a story. They're allowed to be wrong. They can be wrong. That is not malicious per se. It's like when a pastor is saying, okay, we believe this, so let's hurt other people with that, whether they put it in those words or not. That's where I would focus my attention on. Yeah. But I don't know how you would ever stop ignorance, even if you could.
Yeah.
What constitutes
what's sticking in your craw?
What makes up stupidity? Is it just someone who disagrees with me on stuff? Is it not everything is a fact that people don't know. There are differences of opinions that I think that person's stupid about something. That's not true. They're wrong about something. They're different about something.
Craig, what's specifically sticking in your craw? Maybe with a specific we can do better.
So I think there's a few specific things, but I think the one that's brought up here, since Matt wanted to talk about more current events things, is mask. The right to not wear a mask.
Yeah.
If one would consider not wearing a mask for stupid reasons to be a stupid action, then is that case of stupid therefore not a right, and therefore that person does not have a right to not wear a mask for that stupid reason?
Yeah, I think as soon as we have legislation that says you're now required to wear a mask, you no longer have the right to not wear a mask unless you can provide something to show that there's extenuating circumstances. There's a handful of people who have PTSD or something where it's going to be more difficult for them to wear a mask, et cetera. By and large, everybody can wear a mask.
That to me isn't just a stupidity thing, though. That's not like, oops, I don't know how to wear one. I don't want to wear. Like, that has to do with you believe some conspiracy about it. You are choosing to be rebellious and hurt people for the hell of it, or you believe misinformation. That to me, that doesn't strike me as just pure, I didn't know a fact. I don't.
It is very much like a 5-year-old stamping their foot and going, you're not the boss of me. Well, guess what? When it comes to all of us living in a country, when we take actions in order to safeguard the public health, because we have to share space, that means there is some latitude in what things we can and can't impose on people. Yes, I'm pretty much convinced that the government can and should be allowed to say you are required to wear a mask in public when engaging with other people. You don't have to wear a mask at home. You don't have to wear a mask in your house if you don't want to. You can stand out, you can put your lawn chair down at the end of your driveway, 6 feet away from the sidewalk, and sit there and rah, 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 you stupid mask wearing people, I'll never do. You can do that all you want. That's how you exercise your freedom. But if you're going to go out in public and potentially put other people's health at risk, yeah, we get to stop that.
I hear you. I think maybe that stupid, like in this conversation, I've had another thought that maybe the word stupid is so broad and general that maybe when I'm trying to form syllogisms and whatnot, I'm making some invisible equivocations.
Could be. I think you're right in that it's a word that we toss around a little too freely.
Okay. That's really all I had. The other thing I'll just
Cool.
call in.
Thanks for the question.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. What were you going to say, Hemant?
No, that was it. Thanks for the question. Like you said, that to me doesn't strike me as ignorance. That's not stupid. That's
Right.
People are choosing not to wear masks for whatever their reasons are, and they may be bad reasons. They are bad reasons. But that strikes me as very different than someone who just doesn't know stuff that we might expect them to know, which is often forgivable.
And I'm gonna go on a mild rant here for, let's say, less than a minute. I have a friend named Karen who I love dearly, and it annoys the shit out of me that the world that we live in has become the place where we're using people's names as pejoratives. Karens, Chads, whatever, Stans, pick it out. The thing is, there are real people with these names and there's real consequences to it. But what we're actually doing when we do that, we are inventing new stereotype labels. We have characterized a certain type of person. We've come up with a label. If you're going to do that, if you're desperate to do that, why can't you come up with a label that's not already in use for someone else who might be a good person? The Karen that I know isn't a Karen. The Chad that I met last week isn't a Chad. And I'm sure someday that we'll have some sort of asshole label where somebody's being a Matt. And whether or not I am that Matt or not is an issue. So I get it. It's a quickie little thing. It's a way to separate and point out and say, look, that person's being a Karen. And I'd just like for us to try and do a little better. By all means, call out assholes, call out people who are being rude, call out the people who do this type of stuff. But we can use labels that aren't going to disparage those people who aren't part of that group as well. And thus endeth my rant.
That is a problem I've never had to deal with.
Yeah. Stop being such a Hemant, man.
I know. Everywhere I go.
All right. We've got Julian in Ontario, Canada. You're on with Hemant and Matt. How are you? Julian?
Hello?
Yeah, you're here, Julian. How are you?
This is Julian. I'm okay. How about you guys?
Good.
We're good. How can we help?
So I guess, yes. So I had, a question I can form it in. And I was wondering, how do you, I'm an atheist, by the way, I think that's already in the description. How do you people believe in morality without believing in God?
I'll let Hemant do this since I do it every week.
I'm trying to figure out, so you believe in God. You think, is that the only reason you think you're a good person?
I don't necessarily think I'm a good person.
So what good is your belief then? I mean, if it doesn't grant you morality, if it doesn't make you good.
I believe in God. Yeah, so I believe in God, and I believe that God is the only sufficient explanation for morality.
Are there good people who don't believe in God, in your opinion?
I would say no to that.
Based on what? Why do you think they're not good?
Because Hemant and I don't believe in God, and you just basically said we're not good people. So you're going to have to defend that one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Maybe I'll shift. Maybe I'll shift the way this is going. Maybe I'll provide an explanation as to why I think God is the only foundation for morality. Is that good?
Well, first you might want to define morality, because I think you're going to find that the only way to argue that God is the only foundation for morality is to define morality in terms of God, and I don't define morality that way.
Okay, so I would define morality as there's a right way of acting and there's a wrong way of acting.
Well, what's it mean to be right or wrong?
The good way of acting, I would say that if something is in accordance with God's nature, it's good, and if something's against God.
Yeah,
right?
you just defined morality in terms of God. Congratulations, you now have a circular argument that we can't defeat, except to point out that you have a circular argument, which means it's fallacious and we don't have to address it at all. If you define morality in terms of God, then yeah, you're going to win. Congratulations.
Okay, so do you guys believe, for example, killing is wrong?
Killing what?
Yeah.
Killing a person.
Under what circumstances?
An innocent person who did nothing wrong.
Under what circumstances? You described the person, not the circumstances.
I can give a circumstance, so I can go to my neighbor's house and kill them. Would that be wrong?
Well, without digging in and asking you for more specifics, generally speaking, I think both Hemant and I would say yes, that would be wrong, barring some unexplained circumstances.
Okay, why is that?
I hate these conversations because, again, the only reason I've been writing a website for like 15 some years now, more than that, because there's a daily flow of basically religious people doing horrible things, unjustifiable things. So, I mean, again, we're playing with hypotheticals here because it's like, well, would you do this? Well, let me add a different bunch of caveats to it.
To be fair, so you're talking about what people do, and he's talking about whatever the foundation is for characteristics. So to answer your question, Julian, why would I think it would be wrong to walk next door and just murder my neighbor? Because I define morality as having to do with the well-being of thinking creatures, much the same way that Sam Harris would. And so I would rather not live in the sort of world that allows people to just walk over and kill their neighbors, because I'd rather not be killed. And so it's in my best interest to work with other people to make sure that we're constructing the sort of world that not only discourages people from running over and killing their neighbors, because that keeps us alive, but also has some penalties in place for those people who do that. It's not that the universe says there's something specifically wrong with a human killing a human. It is entirely about, I would like to keep living, and I would like to live the best life possible. And if we allow people to run over and just kill their neighbors, that leads to a worse world for everyone than a world where we discourage that. That's it. It's the whole ball of wax.
And you don't need God for any of that.
Yeah. You just need a little empathy, and you can do it from a purely selfish thing. Like, I may not give a crap about anybody else on the planet, but if I want to live the best life I can, and I have to share space with them, I have to consider their needs. I have to consider their interest. I have to consider their well-being. And so it's a simple game theory issue about, hey, what sort of world should we live in? And it's why we point to things like John Rawls' veil of ignorance, which is design the world that you're going to live in without knowing who you're going to be. And so does your world allow for slavery? Well, what if you come in as a slave? What if you come in as a slave owner? You know, you do those sorts of things. Does your world allow you to just run over and kill your neighbors? What if you're the one that dies? Okay, so this stuff is not as hard as people make it out to be.
So it seems like you said that if you were to go around killing people, you might get killed in return. Is that right?
Well, if I not that I would get killed in return, even if I don't ever kill anybody, if I encourage the sort of world that would allow people to kill others, then I'm at risk. I'm at a greater risk.
What if that was not the case? Like, what if you were a powerful, dictator and you can kill whoever you want? It would never affect you.
You don't think powerful dictators are at risk? We kill them all the fucking time. That's what wars are. That's what the CIA's done.
Of course. I agree they're at risk. Of course. I'm just saying, if someone was in that situation where they could kill someone and it wouldn't negatively affect them.
Julian, stop. Yeah, you don't get to pick you don't get to say, what if I can invent a fictional person who would be immune to consequences? Because that doesn't change anything. I'm talking about the real world. And this is why we have what I just talked about, which is the veil of ignorance. Design the kind of world you're going to live in, not knowing who you'll be. You don't pick the world where rich people get away with shit and hope that you're just going to wind up being a rich person. That's what you look for.
You said that
foundations.
You said that you could kill someone. Sorry, no, you said you couldn't kill someone because it would affect you negatively.
No, that's not what I said at all. That's not what I said at all. You have to listen very carefully. I'm pretty specific.
I will. Okay.
I am against killing people because in a world where we permit that, we're all at a greater risk. This isn't about consequences. This isn't about consequences. I'm not saying I don't kill people so that I don't wind up getting killed. I'm saying I advocate for no one killing people in order to lower the risk that I get killed.
Okay, so you're valuing human life then?
Yes. You know why?
Yes. I don't know why. Why?
Because I'm a fucking human. I value my life.
Okay, but why are you?
And I value the life of the people I care about and the people that I have to share space with, because what they do affects my life and what I do affects their life. Do you think the only reason? Do you think the only? Hang on, Julian. Do you think the only reason to care about other lives is because there's a God?
I would say that's the only explanation. Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to keep believing in God forever because you're clearly dangerous. The second you stop believing God, you'll just fucking kill us all, won't you?
Yeah, have you ever had religious doubts? Should we be scared of you?
Well, of course I have, and I wouldn't do that, but I'm saying...
Why wouldn't you do it? So you just... No, stop. You're done, Julian. Julian, you are done. Because you just acknowledged that even if you didn't believe in God, you'd do the same thing that we did, which is not run around killing people.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for acknowledging that we were right all along. All right.
Who else we got?
We got lots. All right. We've got Eryn in San Antonio, and I apologize, Hemant, because this one's for me, and I'll try to handle it quickly. How are you, Eryn?
Hi. I'm sorry. You guys are pretty pressed for time, so I guess I'll just get to the meat of it. I understand that you, and hold on. I know you assume this for everyone who calls in, but I in no way represent the views or values of the Satanic Temple in any way. These are all my personal viewpoints.
Hang on, stop. Why would you assume that I assume this of every caller? You just said, you know that I assume for every caller that they're representing the Satanic Temple. That may be the weirdest fucking thing I've ever heard. I've had several callers today. I have had several callers today. I have not assumed that any of them were calling representing the Satanic Temple.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say, that you don't assume that they call in representing that organization.
Yeah, but you're gonna say that you don't represent them because Lucian and other people get mad when anybody gives the impression that somebody might accidentally appear to be representing Satanic Temple. I know because I've had to deal with this when I debated a Satanist. So what's the point you want to get to?
Okay, so I was going to talk to you today about the value of the personal religious experience. And I understand that religion can be very harmful in a lot of ways, especially when people use that fallacious logic to hurt other people and take advantage of them. But I also want to advocate and argue for the value in going to church, sitting down in the service, and just appreciating that experience, because it's not just a Christian thing. It's all over the world. You have Jews doing it, Muslims, and I'd argue that even the people who engage in sessions of Dungeons and Dragons experience the same thing. That sort of transformation that lifts them from reality. That is somewhat beneficial.
Who's arguing otherwise?
Way.
Yeah, Eryn, this is ridiculous. Of course, human beings are social creatures and we benefit from social stuff. You could have got that done in 10 seconds. What's the point about pink mass that you wanted me to address?
Well, I wanted to postulate that the reason for that, I saw a video where you said that there's this idea that there's no publicity is bad publicity. And I think that you were right in saying that there is a lot of things wrong with the pink mass.
Eryn, please stop. I didn't invent the phrase that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I don't even agree with it. So instead of representing what you think I said or what I said at some point, can you just get to whatever point it was you wanted me to address? Because you're saying, I saw a video where you suggested that there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's not even a view that I hold. Certainly nothing I invented.
Okay, I understand. Would you say that you are... Okay, what is your view on that phrase? In that
bad publicity?
Let me not assume anything.
On what?
Yes.
I think there is bad publicity.
Okay,
I think there is bad publicity. I think Jeffrey Epstein got a lot of bad publicity right before he killed himself.
Ooh. Well, so the point I'm saying is you are opposed to the desecration of that grave because of...
Finally we're here, and none of the people who are watching have a clue what you're talking about. So, pink mass was something that Lucian Greaves did, where he went and rubbed his dick on Fred Phelps' mom's gravestone. Now you can continue. Please tell us why that's a good thing.
Okay. I'm advocating that was for cathartic, ritualistic, personal reasons, rather than ulterior motive to give a big middle finger to the Westboro Baptist
I don't care.
Church, even if that's...
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't fucking care whether Lucian did it to feel good, whether the community did it to feel good, whether they did it to try to piss off Westboro. It doesn't matter. It's Fred Phelps' mom. It's my friend's grandmother, and it didn't do anything positive. And that woman wasn't a target. So, like, I'm an atheist, and I'm an outspoken atheist. My mom is a Christian. If somebody were to try to show the world how terrible I am by going up and talking shit to my mom, whether she's alive or dead, they're an idiot, and they're not doing anything that's benefiting their organization or anything else. I'm still opposed to. I love Satanic Temple. I think they're a great ally for church-state separation, and I will be opposed to what they did for the pink mass forever. It was stupid. It was disrespectful, and it didn't do anything to further their goals.
I don't disagree, Matt, with anything you're saying. I'm very curious. I don't think I've heard the Satanic Temple doing this sort of pink mass to any number of horrible people or
Just
their
one.
mothers,
Just one.
who have died since. So it's the idea that it's a cathartic personal ritual or something. Somehow it's a ritual that only happened once. So I'm failing to see how that's anything but publicity.
Yes. So there are destruction rituals which occur within the membership of the temple, where it's this sort of physical metonymy. You take an object, which is a symbol, and you destroy it as a sort of cathartic release of pain and trauma. I'm trying to say that might have been perhaps one of the. I understand what you're saying. It's
how can it be a ritual when it's only happening? If you're saying it's a cathartic thing, this is something that's an expression of their beliefs of something. It only happened that one time. You're telling me that his mother, I guess, is the only person. Fred Phelps is the worst guy ever. Like, no, there are other people who have been worse than him. They don't do it to their mothers. They didn't do it to Epstein's mother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how is it a ritual? How is it a catharsis, a feeling of catharsis, when it just happened that one time to that one dude?
And why was it so important that you had to call in and try to defend it? That's what I would be thinking about.
Okay, I see you have valid points.
I have sound points. Valid points are fucking easy. Sound points are the hard ones. But I'll go with it. That was just me having fun.
I guess I perhaps may have erroneously made the connection that kind of a ritual, even though it only happened once, so it's not really a ritual, was some sort of destructive ritual that.
It's on a par. It's on a par with burning someone in effigy as a sort of protest. I get it. I understand it. Now, please explain. So Trump, I cannot stand personally the current president of the United States. Just a personal thing. I'm not speaking on a part of any organization. I can't. Let's imagine that I also couldn't stand Joe Biden either. Would it make sense for me to burn either of their mothers in effigy?
No.
Yeah, and that's my point. We're done. Thanks, Baron.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know
I
why
knew where
that's
that was
hard.
going.
I don't know why it's hard to acknowledge that some things can just be publicity stunts for better or for worse, rather than trying to defend them as like an honest expression of someone's views. Like, sometimes people just do stupid shit to get attention.
Yeah, if you want to go, if Lucian had gone and rubbed his dick on Fred Phelps' tombstone, wouldn't have bothered me in the slightest, because Fred was a jackass.
Sure, and also, but I would also argue that would be a publicity thing, because they don't do that to other horrible people who die as well. I mean, just admit it was a publicity thing.
But if you're going to burn somebody in effigy, burn the actual target in effigy, or rub your testicles on the actual target and not the target's mother, because Fred was abusive. I mean, if you hear Nate talk about it and everything else, not just terrible with regard to, but also you could write a biography of Fred Phelps that included nothing but positive things, because he was a lawyer who was opposing and fighting Jim Crow laws in Kansas.
Yeah, civil rights lawyer for part of his career.
That's a lot of good that individual did in the course of his life, and how much of it is trumped by the other things that they did. But at the end of the day, what's his mom got to do with it? That's somebody's that's my friend's grandmother. Yeah. And it's weird that this is the thing, the hill people choose to kind of like die on. But I don't know. Let me try and get this through. We got John in Wyoming. You're on with Matt and Hemant. How are you? John? Okay, maybe not. I'm going to return John to the queue if one of the screeners wants to see if he's there. We have, is it Jelmar in Holland? You're on with Hemant and Matt. How are you?
Hey, Matt. Hi, Hemant.
Hello.
Fine, thanks. Hi. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a little problem with the law of excluded middle in the way that you use it. I hear you very often say that God either exists or he doesn't exist. And I think that's a false dilemma. There is a middle.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sorry. That deserved a loud laugh. Go ahead, continue.
So what do you consider the middle?
There is no middle. There's no. So did you call in to object to the foundations of logic? Because God is irrelevant. Everything, not just God, everything, name anything, it either exists or it does not exist. That's true for everything. That's it. That's what happens when you have a universal declarative contradiction. A is A is not A, and everything is either A or not A. So no matter what it is, an apple either exists or it doesn't. A table either exists or it doesn't. A unicorn either exists or it doesn't. A God either exists or it doesn't. There's no other option.
There is another option.
What's that?
What is that option?
That is that it's fundamentally undecidable.
No. Undecidable addresses what you can know about it. I'm talking about what it is.
No.
Ontologically, it still either exists or it doesn't, irrespective of what you know or think about it. You're confusing your perception of something with the actual ontology of something.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
That's why I added fundamentally. It's fundamentally undecidable.
I don't care what fucking word you add to it. That's exactly what you did. You don't get to invent a third option between A and not A. It just, you don't.
I can give you an example of something that is fundamentally undecidable.
I don't care if it's undecidable. That's about what you know about it. That's not about what it is. It's like, no, stop. If I roll a die and put it on the table and cover it up with a cup of coffee or an empty coffee cup, we know, or let's say I flip a coin just so we have just two options and we'll agree that it's a 50-50 shot. I flip a coin, I put a cup over it. Right now, you don't know whether that coin's head or tails, but that coin is either heads or tails.
Well,
and if I seal that cup so that you can't get in it, or better yet, before you get a chance to look at it, I lift the cup where you can't see and I pull the coin out and remove it. Now you will never know whether it was heads or tails, but you can know that it was absolutely either heads or tails.
One or the other.
So can I give you an example, or?
Actually, no, you can't, but you can try.
The answer to that one.
I mean, I don't know why you're ignoring that. You cannot possibly, it's impossible for you to give me an example that makes your case because your case is in violation of logic, but I'll let you try. Go ahead.
Right. So if you have the sentence, this sentence is a lie, and I ask you, is it true that the sentence is a lie or is it not true?
Now you're talking about the liar's paradox. And the solution to the liar paradox is that the truth value of that sentence cannot be assessed. That's not whether or not it's only a. So the thing that you're missing with logic is that logic doesn't say everything is either true or false. It says everything is either true or not true. Everything is also either false or not false. And so the liar's paradox is not true and it's not false. But we're going to move on. Thank you.
And are you saying?
I said what I said. And I'm not going to be teaching a Logic 101 course in the middle of today's show, but you don't have a third option.
When they ask those questions, what are they trying to get you to show? Is it that the fallacies that you are using or that you are aware of are misleading and therefore something? What's their end game with that sort of a question?
There's two end games with that potential question. One is to just foundationally undermine logic so that they no longer have to feel bad about being called out for engaging in fallacious arguments. The other one involves some presuppositionalist nonsense, which is that because we can't confirm the laws of logic, and you would have to assume that they're true in order to try to prove they're false, which leads to a dilemma, which is why they are axioms that we accept until such time as they're disproven. In their view, those things can be absolutely shown if God is the foundation of logic. And so if they can show that we can't account for like a paradoxical statement, and they can offer a solution in that it's not possible because of God, then somehow in their head, they win.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, it's fundamentally similar to one of the first callers, where it's like, what if there's a supernatural realm and we just can't test it? And so what they're trying to do is say, you guys are wrong to say that there's nothing supernatural. And they would be correct.
Right.
I can't say there's no supernatural. All I can say is nobody's demonstrated the supernatural. And so I don't believe in it until it does. They're trying to do the same thing with
And if they find that little bit of wiggle room, they can shove God through there or something.
Yeah, or at least they won't, the most they could ever get to is, I don't know and you don't know.
Right.
And I'm not asserting that I know. I'm waiting for them to make their case.
Right.
But let's see if we got John in Wyoming. Are you there? All right, last chance, John. That's so disappointing.
John.
John called in to tell us that he saw Jesus at a low point in his life, and I really wanted to get to the heart of it. What do you mean you saw Jesus? Can you tell us? John, I hope you call back sometime.
Or get Jesus to call back on your behalf.
We've got Lloyd in Washington. You're on with Hemant Matt. How are you?
Oh, man, that's a blessing, sir.
I'll doubt that.
I'm thankful God gave me the breath to say thank you, just to talk to you guys and just share my experience.
Do you think God wanted you to call?
He gave me the breath to call, so I believe so.
But did he tell you what to say?
I'm speaking to you, so yes.
No, but did he tell you what to say?
Yeah, so you said thank you for letting me call. Yeah, so
I mean, did he? All right, I was trying to do something. Go ahead, Lloyd. You're fine.
What's the question?
Sir, I was once like you many years
I doubt
ago. An unbeliever. No, I'm serious. And
I have no problem with the notion that you were once an unbeliever. I just doubt that you had a good reason for it, because what you're saying is you believe in God now, right?
Well, I had a supernatural experience.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I'm sorry.
How do you know that you had a supernatural experience?
Well, I'll explain to you, sir.
Cool. Go ahead.
I have a beautiful wife, and when I was in the military, I had a porn collection. I've had collections of it, and that was my wife for many years. And so when I got married to two women, and my beautiful wife, who I saw at the beginning, was beautiful, but later on, that porn became my wife. And when I cried out to God, like, hey, I need some help, man, because I was suffering, man. I mean, let me tell you, when I was in my marriage, man, it was falling apart. My anger, my life.
Where's the supernatural part of this?
What I was doing.
I've had a wife, and I've had porn, and I've watched porn with my wife. What's the problem? Where's the supernatural here? Nothing wrong with porn.
The problem was that I couldn't hear God because of how I was living.
I can't hear God. I can't hear God. How do you know you heard God?
I didn't either, man. But I didn't either, man. But I was in a deep darkness in my mind. And
well, I'm not. So
like you, I mean,
no. You don't. No. Stop, Lloyd. You don't get to say I'm in a deep darkness in my mind, because you don't fucking know me.
Yes, sir.
Make your case for what convinced you to believe, so that we can address it. But if you're just going to come in here and talk shit about porn, I mean, you said you had a supernatural experience, and we want to know what it was and how you know it was supernatural. So can you do that?
Yes, I can. So when I went to church and I asked the pastor, I said, hey, I come here every week, and this book says it's going to fill me with the Spirit. And I said, I don't understand. Why am I not getting filled here? Why am I not feeling this Jesus that everybody says?
Because the book's wrong.
And he looks me in my face, and he tells me, you'll never get filled here. And I got upset. I was really upset. He said, no, you'll never get filled here. I said, well, sir, look, I'm trying to read the Bible. Where do I start at? Do I start in Genesis? Do I start in Matthew? I have a hard time reading the Bible. Where do I start? Because it felt like I was reading calculus. It was hard for me to read. And he said, well, why don't you just start in John? I said, okay. So I went home, threw the Bible on the table, and my wife was in the other room, and I was getting ready to go close the door, pull down the shade, and I was getting ready to go turn on some porn. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this no more. You know what? I'm not going to do this. And so I deleted it. I mean, I literally deleted it all. And it hurt my heart, man. I felt like I threw my wife in the trash can.
You do know there's an internet, right? You can't actually delete porn.
No, but what I'm saying is I felt like I deleted my wife. I felt like I threw her in the trash can because of that I made that commitment to have one wife.
Okay.
And when I did that, man, I laid in the bed that night and I cried out. I said, God, if this book is real, just show me. You know, if this is really real, show me.
All right, here it comes.
Yes, finally. And what was the answer?
Better porn.
So at 3 o'clock in the morning. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, man, I woke up and I thought I was having a panic attack. I didn't know what was going on. I was crying. I literally was. I felt something that was inside of me. It was. I felt light. I felt something like something lifted off my shoulder. And I said, babe, there's something wrong here. She's like, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, there's something wrong here. I'm feeling something here. And I said, it's something powerful. And I said, let me guess a number. You know, because I felt like I can read like minds or something. I didn't know exactly what. It was crazy.
I'm about to call bullshit.
No, hold on, sir. Just wait one second.
Okay.
So, when she thought of a number, I got it wrong. Okay.
All right. I'm not going to call bullshit. Congratulations.
Hold on a second.
No, I'm with you. Go ahead. Keep going.
Think of a color. I said, well, let me think of a color. And she said, okay. And I got the color wrong. I said, okay. But I remember when I had some troubles, man. I went to this Bible camp. And I didn't have.
Wait, what happened to the rest of that story?
But hold on one second.
No, sir. Okay, Lloyd,
yes,
you hold on.
Yes,
Lloyd, Lloyd,
yes.
you hold on for a second. You had a panic attack or something, and you thought something was powerful, so you woke up your second wife, and you tried to guess a number and got it wrong, and you tried to guess a color and got it wrong. And now you're telling us about a different story? You've moved on to something else. What else?
No, I'm sorry. I was going to get into the context of the Bibles that I received.
Would you just tell us what happened that convinced you that a God was talking to you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So my immediate notion was to grab the Bible. I grabbed the Bible.
Well, there's your problem,
up, sir. Hold on a second. When I grabbed it and opened it up, for the first time in my whole entire life, I was able to see the words clearly in the Bible. I mean, it looked like I can do that right now. No, what I'm saying is, sir, beforehand it looked like calculus.
Okay, well, I've been reading the Bible since I could read, and none of it looks like calculus. As a matter of fact, I just randomly opened to Ezra 3, and I can read it. And when the 7th month was come and the children of Israel were in their cities, I need my glasses. The people gathered themselves together as one man to Jerusalem. Nothing about that's calculus. Can we drop all of the hyperbole and flowery stuff and just get to what convinced you?
Okay. So at that point, because in order for me to hear God, I had to clean myself out of what I was doing wrong, and that I was cheating on my wife. I didn't know I was, but the Spirit made me. The Spirit of truth came inside of me at that moment.
Okay, Lloyd, I swear, Lloyd, I'm almost done, because what I want to know is what happened that changed your mind. I don't want to know what you think God was convicting you of, because I think that's all bullshit. What happened that changed your mind?
The personal story feels like you told it many times before, but the emotional journey you went through.
See, because there could be 100 people who could call the show today to say, oh, I was an alcoholic, or I really liked porn, or I had a drug problem or whatever, and I'm convinced that Jesus fixed me of it. That could happen all the time. We need something that we can evaluate, not just what you think happened. Tell us what happened and how you know it was supernatural and God.
So God gave me a word to share with you, and it's a word of truth. So I'm going to read this to you, okay? That I written. I want to share this with you with love. I want to share this with you with love.
Just share it, or I'm hanging up.
Sir, we are dying because of our anger, because we are living unforgiving lives. And if we want God to forgive us, we have to forgive others. And so he made me realize that I'm angry because I refuse to forgive.
Hey,
so
I'm done. I'm done, and I'll tell you why. I'm done, and I'll tell you why, Lloyd. I just proved that your God either doesn't exist or did not give you a word of truth. I just proved it because you're convinced that God gave you this word of truth to deliver to me. And the word of truth is that we are dying because of our anger. That's not true. We're living unforgiving lives. That's not true. And the next sentence out of your mouth was, and if we want God to forgive us, I don't give a fuck about God forgiving us. And if there was a God anywhere in reality who had a message for me, he would know that I don't care whether he forgives me. And so he couldn't possibly have sent you, Lloyd, with a message that I don't give a fuck about, could he?
That's fine, sir. I mean, I wasn't here trying to convince you to join me.
Oh, yes.
What was the point of the call?
No, you just called in because you think God had a message for me. And when I tell you that that message couldn't possibly be for me, now you're just like, oh, well, I wasn't trying to convince you of anything. How dishonest are you, Lloyd?
But this is not about religion, sir. What this book taught me is that I need to be
wait,
a better man.
Stop.
And
Lloyd, did I say it was about religion? I said it was about God. You said there's a God who has a message for me, and I said that message is a load of shit, and no God would have sent it to me. What's your response to that?
Sir, he just wanted me to share that.
Why would God want you to give me a message that I don't care about? What kind of idiot is your God?
But because you're asking for proof and evidence.
Yeah.
And
Did you provide any proof? You provided the exact opposite of proof.
Yeah,
If God knows, does God know what's, Lloyd, does God know what's in my mind and in my heart?
You want to know him. That's why.
Does God? No, I don't want to know him. I just want to know if he's real. Does God know what's in my mind or in my heart?
Yes, he does.
Okay. And so you think that same God who knows my mind and heart gave you a message that makes you look foolish and does not do anything to demonstrate the truth of God. You think is God punking you?
Sir, here's the thing: is that I should die for my brothers and my sisters in the midst.
No, you shouldn't. You should live, and you should live free. You should unshackle your mind. You should unshackle your mind from religions that are not true, from beliefs that are false and damaging, from beliefs that have been used to enslave people, to manipulate people. You should free yourself. That's what you should do. You shouldn't be dying for anybody. And you shouldn't call in and say, oh, God wants to, do you want God to forgive you? I don't give a fuck if God ever forgives me because there's no God.
There's no anger.
There's no anger.
There's no anger there.
This is not angry.
You said you were telling us a story with supernatural proof. There's no proof. There's just a lot of your personal history, but none of it's convincing. None of it's evidence of anything.
You just disproved the very God you believe in. There's nothing angry here other than I am irritated that you are willing to die to a belief that you just disproved.
I'm sorry. I'll tell you this. Let me ask you this. Every time you eat a meal, how do you have some type of lab or something in your house to check to make sure that whoever put the food together for you to eat didn't have a bad day on a job and put too much of something?
No.
You just eat it out of faith, right?
No, I don't. That's the thing, Lloyd. It's not faith. I have really good evidence that we have worked towards a society that minimizes the risk of that. I never eat a meal assuming that it's not, this meal isn't poisoned. I've had food poisoning before. What I do is I eat the meal with a confidence that is proportional to the evidence that it's unlikely that I'm going to be poisoned. You don't just, faith isn't just.
And that's all God God
a lack
is
of
asking
certainty.
for it too. If you put that same confidence in believing in Him.
I tell you what, you put God, Lloyd, put God on a plate like my steak, and I'll believe in it. Until then, you might as well be calling in to say that this is what fairies want. Fairies just want us to believe with a little bit of faith.
But you don't put your food on the same scale as you trying to put the Bible. And so
because food is fucking real, Lloyd. Food is fucking real.
What I'm saying is here. Let me tell you something. The Bible, the rule says you have to have faith to play this. You can't.
No, it doesn't.
The rules to play the game.
No, it doesn't.
You called in saying you had proof. You called in saying you have proof, not that you wanted us to take anything on faith. We haven't heard any of that yet.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe things on faith. Faith is the excuse people give when they don't have evidence. I believe that my food is unlikely to be poisoned because I have evidence that it's unlikely to be poisoned. I do not have sufficient evidence to conclude that God exists. And when people like you call in with a message from God, which disproves the very God you believe in, all that does is make it worse. So God is punking you, if he's real, and God is actively working against anyone realizing that he exists because you believe in a God that just sent you onto a show to show that God can't be real.
He can't. He is real.
No, he can't be. Not the God you believe in. No, he can't, Lloyd. He can't, Lloyd.
Put a needle up in something and
he can't, Lloyd.
Here's the thing.
The God you described can't be real. You set up a contradiction. The God you described can't be real. That's it. There's no two ways about it. It's just a fact. If your God knows my brain and wants to deliver a message in your mind that's going to change my mind and delivers a message that actually solidifies my position and counters the God that you believe in, then your God is either the biggest idiot in history, or he doesn't exist, or he's evil and malicious and trying to make you look so foolish and hide himself.
Well, let me tell you this, man. If you look at John 1:1, if you look at John 1:1,
in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Yes, I know it by heart. Right. And you know what?
So
what does Captain Kirk need with a starship?
Hold on 1 second. So
what? No. I'm not holding on for any seconds. What does Captain Kirk need with this, or what does God need with a starship? Said Captain Kirk. Sorry.
But you asked for the message here, and so here's the message. You remember?
No. I did not ask you to just quote scripture at me. That's not going to convince me. Do you realize that I used to believe like you did, and that I was going to be a preacher, and that I know the Bible probably better than you and most of the people who call the show?
You didn't even let me finish. How are you going to sit there and assume that I'm not going to say a message that you're going to need to hear? If you're going to
because I know nobody who was trying to convince me of a God would ever say, "Hey, go read John 1:1." Because that won't work.
Finish saying it.
I don't need you to finish saying something stupid.
But you say like you're going to? Are you Miss Cleo over here or something?
Yes. Lloyd. Yes, because Miss Cleo's not psychic either. Lloyd, did you just tell me to read John 1:1?
Yes, I did, and you said you know what I'm going to say. Like you didn't even let me finish what I'm going to say.
He knows John 1:1.
Why would you tell me to read John 1:1?
So the big message here, sir, is that our words are killing.
I swear I'm going to hang up.
Why? Why are you hanging up?
I asked you a question. Answer it. Why would you want me to read John 1:1?
Because that's the message that you need to know is that it's our words.
Do you think that the guy who just quoted it to you verbatim doesn't know that message? How much does your God hate you that he's trying to make you look so silly?
But you're asking about morality, and so morality.
I didn't ask about morality. I didn't ask about morality at all with you, John, with you, Lloyd. I asked about what changed your mind. That's what I asked about. And you came here with a message from God, and you think your God wants you to tell me to read John 1:1 when I can quote it verbatim?
That book. But let me just say this: that book made me a better man, and just,
I'm glad. I'm glad something made you a better man. I wish you would free your mind.
I don't cheat on my wife anymore. I'm not angry at my wife anymore.
You weren't cheating on your wife. You weren't cheating on your wife. I wasn't cheating on my wife when I watched porn. I wasn't cheating on my wife when I watched porn alone or when I watched porn with my wife. You weren't cheating on your wife. Somebody convinced you that normal human sexuality is a problem. Now, for you, maybe it was. Maybe it was a distraction where you weren't as interested in your wife. I'm glad that your relationship with your wife's better, but it has nothing to do with a God.
closed the door and pulled down that shade, and she was in there doing something else, I was cheating on her because that was another woman I was looking at while she was in the other room.
Yes, that's only if you believe the bullshit things in the Bible about if you look on a woman with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. I'm sorry, adultery is adultery. Adultery in your heart is just lust, and lust is what drives the world. Lust is the reason you wanted your wife in the first place. Lust is the reason you got married.
Yeah, but lust will drive me away too.
Okay.
Well, then fix that, but it doesn't have anything to do with God. You replaced one addiction with another.
Yeah.
Right, and so if you want to hear God, you need to start being like God, and that's not godly. That's not morally.
Lloyd, stop telling me what I need to do to hear God, because all you're engaged in is sophistry. Either provide a way to actually hear from a God and get evidence, or we're done.
I did. I just said stop.
No, you didn't.
There was no evidence.
You just said no.
Right.
I am the evidence. I mean, what evidence?
You're not the evidence. You are not the evidence of God. I'm sorry.
Your life anecdote is not evidence of anything.
Yeah.
Field or something? I mean, what do you want to see? A genie?
I want some fucking evidence of a God, not just, hey, I used to not like my wife as much as I like the hotties in the porn, and a book convinced me of it, so therefore there must be a God.
And to look at other women.
Here, I've muted you. I want actual evidence, not just what you feel happened with regard to the fact that you weren't as attracted to your wife as you were about the hotties in porn. I want actual evidence and a way to engage with it.
Everyone goes through life changes. The fact that people can, in their minds, better themselves is not evidence of God's existence.
Well. Let me just. Have you guys ever played Zelda before?
Yeah, and let me just say, you're not going to keep going because we got 3 minutes left in the show, and I want to get on to one more caller. But thank you. I'm not going to let you start a conversation about playing Zelda after all of that. Are you out of your mind?
From porn to Zelda.
I usually go from Zelda to porn, but
I was going to say that's the right way to do it, but oh well.
Here we go. This will be the last call we're going to actually have time to take today. James in Maine wants to, I don't know, evidently I have some logic problems. So go for it, James. And apologies to Hemant ahead of time.
Apologies for what?
Oh, I was apologizing to Hemant ahead of time because I know where this is going.
Okay. And yeah, that was really hard to listen to that last one. Anyways, okay.
This one's not going to be any easier, I can tell you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so you know where this is going, but I'll say it anyways. I was watching your talk with Dinesh D'Souza, and it just kind of jumped out at me. You're very pro-trans, and
yes,
you
I
support
am.
Trans people and their
experience
and what they say. And so, I guess the bottom line of what I would say is, you're at the end of the day, you're taking their word for it. And
no.
Oh my God.
Okay. Stop. Yes, I'm going to take someone's word for it when they tell me how they feel. Don't you? If I say to you, James,
I don't.
James, if I say to you that I'm bisexual, you take my word for it, or you want me to prove it?
I mean, I don't really care about your sexuality.
Exactly. So. Good. If I tell you that I'm trans,
what do you
take my word for it?
Yeah.
So my point here is not to say that trans people do not feel the way they do. My point is to say that you believe their feelings about their experience, and people also obviously say they experience God and whatnot, and you really have no objective metric to say that the religious people, their feelings are any less valid than the trans people's feelings. It seems.
Yes, I fucking do, and thank you for saying so. Welcome to the show, James. Buckle up. This is going to be rough. Religious people are making about something outside of themselves being demonstrably true. And it's like saying, hey, I believe there's a dragon. Hey, I believe there's a God. Hey, I believe there's a 3-headed dog in my backyard that shoots fire out of its ass and grows peanuts like nobody else, and it makes the best peanut butter. All of those things are claims about something outside of them that need evidential support. When a trans person talks about their identity, the word identity necessarily makes it about them and themselves. They're not claiming that they are something external about them. This is about who they are. And if I tell you, this is who I am, that's just the way it is.
Okay. Well,
these two things are not
okay,
comparable.
So I'll use a Christian example to refute that because I'm a Christian.
Well, you can't. So until Christianity is true, there's no Christian example that can refute it. But this is basic logic.
Okay.
This is basic logic. But go ahead.
Will you listen to me, please?
No, stop, jackass. You're muted. I'm going to unmute you in a minute. It's my show. If I'm going to offer clarification, I'm still going to let you speak. Don't just sit there and talk over me, waiting for your turn to speak. The only reason you're getting on this show at all is so that I can expose how bad your thinking is. So now you can present your argument.
Okay. Sorry for talking over you. I just thought you might pause, but okay. So what I was saying is, so for instance, Christians believe that the Holy Spirit fills them and that's something that they would experience internally. God defines their identity, so it is related to their identity. So it is not something totally external to them, and it is internal. And that is similar to what you're saying for trans people. And on top of that,
James,
we're not denying they feel that.
Exactly.
We're not denying their Christian identities.
Yep. If you tell me, James, that you are convinced that you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, I will not say you're wrong. I will accept the fact that you are convinced that you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. You know why? I was convinced of it also. You know why else? Because I can't read your mind and I can't tell whether or not you're lying. But whether or not you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit is separate from whether or not you actually are experiencing the Holy Spirit, which is an external thing. Your analogy fails. It's going to keep failing. It will fail forever. Stop with your bigotry and just take your fucking nose, your busybody nose, out of trans people's lives and let them exist and let them have their lives without you trying to argue circles around whether or not somebody should be allowed to use a particular bathroom or whether or not somebody else fits what you think the fucking mold is with regard to gender. Goodbye.
And no one's trying to control anyone's lives based on their identity as a Christian. No one's telling you what you can and can't do with that just because you feel it. So,
Yeah, when trans people start coming at me telling me that they feel that I'm wrong about my then maybe you'll have a point. But that ain't what's happening. Yeah. It's you and people like you.
Total of 0 times.
It's people like you who are causing the problems here, not the trans people who are being killed, who are having their rights taken away, who are being marginalized, all because a bunch of jackass bigots with a book who can't tell the difference between biological sex and gender want to get their panties in a twist because somebody used a bathroom. And when you're going to bring up when I was sitting on the stage with D'Souza, I'll repeat that. And that was, he was all worried that someone like me might run into a women's bathroom and wave their testicles around. Well, I've never seen anybody waving their testicles around in a men's bathroom or a women's bathroom. And it's not the way bathrooms work. These fears that people have about what's going on, just mind your own goddamn business.
There have been trans people in your bathroom and you didn't notice. That's how it always works.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let's just get rid of gendered bathrooms in the first place, and maybe let's get rid of gendered stuff all over the place. On that note, we have run past the 6 o'clock hour. And Hemant looks like God is touching him right now on my screen. It's this great spray of light across there. I want to thank you so much for doing this and filling in on short notice. This has been great.
All good. Thank you. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Thank you to your crew for making it very easy to do.
Yeah, we'd love to get you back some other time. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody who donated. Remember, you can still click the donation link there in YouTube while we're live. Thanks to everybody behind the scenes. Here's the crew that makes all this stuff happen. We will see you guys next week. Please stay safe during the pandemic.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.